All right, first thing, we're just going to ignore all the stuff back here. I'm teaching a songwriting class tomorrow, and I'm all packed up and ready to go. So, okay, on to the video. Hey, what up, y'all? My name is D, and welcome back to Book Reviews from a Regular Dude. Today, I'm going to talk about The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. A couple of weeks ago, I put out a poll asking my new subscribers what they wanted me to review, either Iron Widow by Jianjie Zhao or The Starless Sea. And it was pretty close, so I just decided to do both. Now, if you don't know this book or you don't know what it's about, I'm going to read the premise real quick. Zachary Ezra Rollins is a graduate student in Vermont when he discovers a mysterious book hidden in the stacks. As he turns the pages, entranced by tales of lovelorn prisoners, key collectors, and nameless acolytes, he reads something strange. A story from his own childhood. Bewildered by this inexplicable book and desperate to make sense of how his own life can be recorded, Zachary uncovers a series of clues, a bee, a key, and a sword that lead him to a masquerade party in New York, to a secret club, and through a doorway to an ancient library hidden far below the surface of the earth. What Zachary finds in this curious place is more than just a buried home for books and their guardians. It is a place of lost cities and seas, lovers who pass notes under doors and across time, and stories whispered by the dead. Zachary learns of those who have sacrificed much to protect this realm, relinquishing their sight and their tongues to preserve this archive, and also those who are intent on its destruction. I think this book is pretty popular, at least it's got a pretty good rating on Goodreads. It's cruising at about a 3.9 out of 5. I really like this book, and I think it's in my top 10 that I've read in the last few years. I've read it a couple of times, same with The Night Circus, also by Erin Morgenstern, which is going to come up a bit in this video. I guess they're both comfort reads for me. A couple of weeks ago, I was at my adoptive mother's house and I saw a copy of The Starless Sea sitting on the top of a stack of books. And I was super confused as to why it was there, because The Starless Sea is definitely not my mom's vibe. She told me that her book club chose it and she hadn't read it yet. And I spent 10 minutes explaining to her why she shouldn't read it, because she's not going to like it. So it's fresh in my mind. Mild spoiler alert. I'm trying my best to not reveal too much about the plot so that if you haven't read this book and you would like to, you still can. But if you don't want to know anything about this book, maybe drop a like, go read the book, and then come back later. Anyways, let's get on with the review. Let's start with things that I do like about this book. Firstly, I love Erin Morgenstern's prose. Her authorial voice has a nice tone to it, if that makes sense. The way she chooses to say things is just the right amount of flowery and poetic. I think some authors try to write in this style and they overdo it and it stops making sense. Whereas I don't think Morgenstern really gets lost in the sauce of sounding pretty. Also, I think Erin Morgenstern's funny, in a pretty subtle way, but it's definitely there. In The Starless Sea, that really shines through the main character, Zachary, who's an awkward millennial. Because of that, I think his inner dialogue is pretty funny. Also, Zachary's interactions with another character named Mirabelle are pretty fun. There's a scene where they got to go rescue somebody and they stop at a Starbucks, and it's pretty funny. It's silly. I like it. I really like the vibe that Morgenstern sets with her writing. I'll talk more about the vibes later, but I've read both her books physically and via audiobook. And if you're one of those fucking ableist snobs who thinks that audiobooks don't count as reading, you are more than welcome to leave.
You are more than welcome to leave. You understand?
So yeah, I've read both books both ways, and I just really enjoy it. It's I can listen to them while I'm at work, which is really chill. I enjoy it. I like these characters a lot. Zachary reminds me of a bunch of my friends. Mirabelle is fun, but frustrating for sure. I don't really think we get a good sense of Dorian as a character, but he's charming. Also, one of my favorite characters from The Night Circus makes a cameo in The Starless Sea, and I was like, oh, hype. This means that these two books are part of the same universe, which is cool because the magic in both books is kind of different. It functions differently from what I can tell. And that makes the world more interesting because there's different types of magic at play and they don't have much to do with each other, right? Kind of. And I think that just makes whatever this world is kind of rich, that there's a bunch of different types of magic. Throughout The Starless Sea, Zachary reads from these books of short stories, and I really like those short stories. They feel like fairy tales to me. I'm not a big fairy tale guy, but they're cool. My friend Emily, who is a book talker and also hosts a podcast called Infatuated, said that she sometimes like flips through the Starless Sea and just reads those short stories, and I haven't done that myself, but I feel like that would be like a nice thing to do in the wintertime. You know, just get cozy with it. All right, let's move on to some things about this book that had me a little conflicted. There's a character in this book who, when first introduced, I thought was going to be like the big bad villain, but they end up being kind of unnecessary. You know, you get their whole backstory, you get their motivations, but, you know, by the end of it, I was just like, oh, you didn't really need to be here. It's not really them versus Zachary. It's like Zachary's on a journey, and they're kind of a hindrance sometimes. And yet their actions do move the story forward, and they have significant connections to two major characters, so it's like they're important, but they're also not. I guess like this character is more of a plot device than a character, at least to me. A little while, like a couple of seconds ago, I was talking about how I think that this world, this universe is interesting because there's like different types of magic at play, but I don't feel like the magic in the Starless Sea is explained well. And while I didn't necessarily find that confusing, or it didn't really take me out of the story, I can see how it would take a reader out of the story. I think in my review of Fourth Wing, I said that if you're going to have like magic or a supernatural element in your story, you need to like explain the rules, make them make sense, and stick to them, or have a really good reason to break them. And while I don't think that Erin Morgenstern broke any rules, I can't really be sure because the rules aren't clear. And it does feel very like because I said so, which I guess is fair. And, you know, I guess because it feels like a modern fairy tale, and fairy tales don't always like explain the functionality or the mechanics of their magic. Because, you know, it's magic. How do you do that? I guess that's fine. But I could understand why some people wouldn't like that because it can be a little confusing. There's a romance between Zachary and another character named Dorian, and I don't know how I feel about it. Like, it's not a huge part of the book. All it leads to is a little smooch at the end, which, you know, I thought was cute, and it definitely plays into that kind of like fairy tale ending sort of vibe. And when they interact, like, there's definitely chemistry, there's definitely attraction, but they don't really talk to each other that much. So like at the end, it feels like they have this super deep connection, and this kiss is the culmination of a lot of built up tension, but they've known each other for like a day, and they haven't been together for a lot of that day. Or maybe it's longer. I don't know. Time works different in different places in this book, which is confusing. But yeah, because of this like flowery poetic language, the kiss is kind of presented like it's a ton of payoff, but it felt a lot more like, oh, the adventure's over, I'm gonna smooch this cutie. There's nothing in this book that I straight up didn't like, except for giant bees. Fuck that. But I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about ever since I saw this TikTok about the night circus. So this guy on Book Talk said that the night circus is no plot, all vibes. And I think the same could be said, almost more so, about the Starless Sea. But I don't necessarily agree with this critique. I do think it's fun to say no plot, all vibes. Like, you know the terms plot driven or character driven. I think that Morgenstern writes vibe driven books. They're very atmospheric. Writers, regardless of genre or medium, take their audience on a journey. They've already forged the path, and the reader is just following along the trail. Some trails are just a straight line. Some trails are full of twists and turns and zigs and zags. And I think some trails are just meandering, just going through a pleasant stroll through a wide open field, where the point is to go slow and just enjoy the atmosphere. I think books like The Starless Sea or The Night Circus, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and fuck it, anything by Becky Chambers fall into that category. And I'm about it. Sometimes I don't want to do a super deep dive into a character's mind. Sometimes I don't want to be held in suspense. Sometimes I don't want to read something that's just packed with action and plot twists. Sometimes I just want to vibe. And I think that there's a place for books like this. I think they can be relaxing or soothing, kind of like a Ghibli movie. But I also understand why some people find books like this really boring. One of my mutuals on Book Talk hates the Starless Sea. She said that Morgenstern basically shoved every pretty thing she could think of into a book that made no sense, and she DNF'd it. I was watching that TikTok like, yeah, okay, that's fair. I disagree, but fair. I think that the Starless Sea is exactly what it intended to be, but it's not gonna be for everyone. So is it good? Yeah, I would say so. Did I enjoy it? Yes, absolutely. Would I recommend it? No, probably not. Like I said before, this book is not for everyone. And I just don't think that the Starless Sea is a good, like, general recommendation. Because even if you've read The Night Circus and loved it, you might not like the Starless Sea. A lot of Morgenstern's readers love one and hate the other. I love both. I'm a big fan. In fact, my friend Taylor sent me the Phantom Wise Tarot deck from The Night Circus. Taylor, if you're watching this, thank you so much. So yeah, if you're into a slower, more vibe-driven read, this book might be for you. But because it's got kind of an unorthodox structure and a slow pace, it's pretty niche, and I just can't recommend it to anyone because I don't want to recommend it to somebody and they have a bad time. Erin, if you're watching this, I am truly sorry. All right, I think that's it for me this week. Thank you for watching this video, especially if you made it to the end. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe so you don't miss another video. If there's a book that you want me to review, drop it in the comments and I'll think about it. And if you like what I'm starting to do on this channel and you want to support the content, I do have a Ko-fi, or is it coffee page, and I'll link it below. Absolutely no pressure though. So again, thank you so much for watching. My name is D. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace. Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That's gonna be fun to edit later. I'm sorry.